All right, Matthew chapter 8, verse 5. We're going to get there just in a moment. Jesus has been up on a mountain, and he's coming down now after spending some time in solitude. First, he meets a leper, and then as he makes his way into the town of Capernaum, he meets a Roman centurion. Now, this encounter is incredible because the Romans and the Jews, there's no love lost here. And here is a Roman centurion, the Romans of which have been ruling Israel with an iron fist for quite some time. And this Roman leader has great courage as he comes to a Jewish rabbi and he asks for help. Now, the translation is very difficult here because we don't know if this word means servant or son because it's so closely related. So the Roman centurion has a servant, which says a lot about him that he would care that much about a slave in his household, or a son who is desperately ill. And here's a Roman centurion that's willing to do whatever it takes to make him well. So he fights his way through the streets of Capernaum, which wouldn't be a difficult fight, and he comes to Jesus, this Jewish rabbi, and he tells Jesus the story. And so Jesus has great compassion, as he usually does. And he says to the Roman centurion, "Would you like me to come to your house and take care of business?" And the Roman centurion, as dramatic and astonishing as the encounter is, even more astonishing is that the Roman centurion would look Jesus in the eye and say, number one, "I'm not worthy to have you come to my house." I mean, Jesus, you're like the commander of the universe. I got 600 men under me. So I'm not worthy for you to come to my house. And besides that, and this is what is even more astonishing, you don't need to come. All you got to do is just say the word. And your power and authority will transcend the distance, and my servant or son will be healed. I mean, as you read that in the text, when Jesus hears it, the text says he was surprised. How do you surprise Jesus? Now, how does that happen? Here's what the story says. And just remember these 4 words. Just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. And that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. In other words, Jesus, you are the master and commander of the universe. You just say the word, and the winds and the waves and the forces of nature, all of that, are under your supervision and authority. You don't need to come to my house. I mean, I know my position, would say the Roman centurion. I know my place, and I know your position and your power and authority. So Jesus, just say the word. And if you don't believe me, look at what happens in verse 10. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed. Now, that's a sermon in and of itself. How do you surprise or astonish the one who knows everything? And said this, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. All right, now look up. We're in a series called Passages That Pump Me Up. Now, what I mean by that is the Bible is filled with wisdom and knowledge, man. You get it into your life, it's going to change the way you live. But there are some passages, man, if you can just take a pause and relax and let the Word of God permeate your life, the application here is just mesmerizing. You will be changed. It'll change everything about you. And the reason this passage pumps me up, even more than the previous 2, is I finally learn in this passage, in an indirect way, what kind of disciple Jesus is actually looking for. And it allows everyone in the room to ask, is that me? And you know what kind of disciple he asks for? A just say the word type of follower. Whatever you say, the Roman centurion believed that whatever Jesus said, it will become a reality in his life. So here's what I want you to do. Only if you want to. On the count of 3, I want you to say, just say the word. 1, 2, 3. Just say the word. Now, what is that exactly? Now, I want to recall your attention to Francis Chan, who spoke at the North American Convention. I spoke Thursday night. He was up Friday morning. Powerful speaker. One of his illustrations, I love to just think about it. And I've been thinking about it since I first heard it. I shared it with you guys probably about a month ago when he goes into his little daughter in her room and says, sweetheart, your room is a mess, clean it up. And remember, 2 weeks go by, and he comes back to his daughter and says, did you clean your room? And she says, no, but I thought about what you said. 2 weeks later, the room is still a mess. Sweetheart, did you clean your room? No, Dad, but I invited some friends over and we discussed what you said. But did you clean it? No. 2 weeks go by, still a mess. Sweetheart, did you clean your room? No. But my friends and I memorized in Greek and Hebrew what you said. Now, you know, I'm sure that's a made-up story, at least the last half of that. But I've thought about that, and I thought, man, this is brilliant. So I've expanded on it a little bit, and I want to share. I think this is what children of the West would say, okay? To God, when he's their father, they would say something like this. Dad, we had a great debate over whether or not you had the right to tell us to clean our room. You can see that, right? Or here's the second one. We talked about whether or not cleaning one's room is archaic, old-fashioned, and out of date. So we decided that rule should no longer be enforced. You with me? 3, we talked about whether or not cleaning one's room actually makes you happy. You got it? Okay, now this fourth one is going to be a little bit more difficult unless you've got a degree in philosophy, then you'll be following me, but don't worry. I'll give another explanation. Father, we talked about other families having fathers that did not require clean rooms. We agreed that those fathers are just as valid as our father, so we decided that our room would remain untidy. Now, for those of you who don't have a degree in philosophy, you're thinking, what? Let me rephrase it by saying this. Dad, cleaning rooms may be true for you, but it's not true for me. Got it now? And then here's the last one. Dad, some of us discussed the meaning of the Greek word clean and could not get a consensus concerning what clean really means. So we decided just to leave it as it is. Now here's what James chapter 1 verse 22 says. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. The word deceive is the Greek word paralogizomai, which means false reasoning. Don't trick yourself into thinking that all you got to do is come in here on the weekend and hear. You've actually also got to make the necessary changes. And all of my life, I have wanted to be a just say the word type of follower of Jesus. That whatever Jesus said, that I would just do it. No excuses, no ifs, ands, or buts. No rationalizing. No talking about why that command maybe not apply to me, but everybody else. No justifying. Jesus says the word and I get it done. So that when Jesus says, Jeff Vines, do this, I do it. When he says, live this way, I live that way. When he says, go that direction, I go that direction. When he says, make that change or get rid of that, I say, okay, God has spoken and I want his word to become a reality in my life. No matter how tough it gets, even if it's counter to culture, even if the whole stinking world is going that way and God tells me to go that way, I want to be a just say the word type of believer. Do you? Is that what we want? Folks, Matthew 8 pumps me up because it reminds me that military men and women get it. They know what I'm talking about. When our American heroes stormed the beaches of Normandy, the scope of the invasion is breathtaking. We're talking about 150,000 troops, 5,000 ships, 12,000 planes, 1,000 tanks, all heading into the teeth of the amply supplied, dug-in Nazi army perched high on the bluffs. Landmines everywhere. Think about it, mortars everywhere. Heavy artillery. And did you see Saving Private Ryan? And you remember when they're about to disembark and some of the men on the ship lost control of bodily functions because they knew that a lot of them were going to be killed instantly. They dropped the doors and what happened? All the men pursued. Some were killed immediately, but those who were spared continued to march to take the beach and finally to take the hill. And here's my point. Time magazine did a 40-year anniversary of D-Day. And in the article, they interviewed some of the soldiers and they asked them this question, why did you do it? How could you do it when you knew that you might die? Still disembark, get out of the boat, and march toward the hill. And here is the consensus. Here's what they said. Do not call us heroes for doing what we did. We were soldiers. We were just carrying out orders. They were just say the word type people. And because they were just say the word type people, you and I now have the freedom to sit here and listen to me say, we ought to be just say the word type people. And if they can do that, if they can do that for earthly purposes, how much more then can you and I do that for eternal purposes, for the will of God be coming to fruition in all of our lives? Now here's the problem. 26 years of ministry. And I have met so few people who are just say the word type people. It's starting to aggravate me. What's aggravating me even more than that is I look at my own life, and I am not a just say the word type pastor. What's wrong with me? Oh, we all say that we are until God asks us to do something hard. Until He says, don't sleep with your girlfriend until you're married. Until He says, I want you to give the first fruits of your life to God. Until He says, I want you to discover your spiritual gift and serve. Until He asks us to do something we don't want to do. What's wrong? What is the problem? So I've been thinking about this all week. I want to be just say the word. And I know you do too. I believe that you do. So I think I've got some theories here. First of all, it may be a vortex problem. Now, I love this. We're in the Word today. Fewer stories, more Word. It's got to be good. Jesus says this, enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Now, leave that just there for a second. There are two Greek words juxtaposed here. They're placed side by side. One is the word eis, which is translated many enter through it. The other is the Greek word of which everyone in the room knows the definition, eureka. It means, I found it. And the writer puts these two words because eis means a flow. It means that there's a flow in the world that's just going. You don't have to think about it. You just step in it and go where everybody else is going. And that road leads to a wide gate that is destructive. The other word is eureka. You actually got to step out of the flow. That's what eureka means. It means to go out of the regular flow and to search diligently until you find it. Now here's the point. There is a flow of the world, and it doesn't go toward God, it goes away. And in the American culture, our culture detests authority. Come on. We don't like anybody telling us what to do. It starts when we're kids and we say to our little brother, you're not the boss of me. Nobody's going to tell us what to do. We don't like authority. We don't like power. We don't like structures. We're Americans. Nobody tells us what to do. So in a democracy, if we don't like our leaders, we vote them out. We don't like our boss, we move him out, or try to. If we don't like our teachers, we drop their classes. If we don't like our pastors, we find another church. And if we don't like our spouses, we divorce them. God bless America, home of the free. Remember the story I told you about the guy who was on a deserted island, stuck there for 15 years, built 3 huts. They finally rescued him. They said, what are the 3 huts? He said, well, that first hut is my home. I had to live somewhere. Second hut is my church. I had to go and express my spirituality. Okay, but what's the third hut? Well, that's the church I used to go to. We can't even get along with ourselves. We don't even like it when we tell ourselves what to do. And I'm just saying that the American way is not a way of followership. And many of us have been sucked into the vortex. And you've got to be careful because Jesus says in that same passage, many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord. And I'll tell them, depart from me, I never knew you, because you just heard, but you never did anything. It might be a vortex problem. Maybe you're being sucked in by the world. Second, it could be a knowledge problem. Now, folks, when I went to high school, think about this. How would you like to have a name like Skeeter Swift? That was my high school basketball coach's name my first year. He was an old ABA player. And he would just sit at half court and spit tobacco on the floor while we practiced. This guy was a loser, I'm telling you. He would actually make us play strip free throw. Now, I'm serious. Today, you'd be arrested for that. But he would put tape and paper over the windows and lock all the doors, and we'd play strip free throw. Now, you want to know what real pressure is? Let me define it for you. Real pressure is when you're 14 years old, and you got one article of clothing left, and if you miss the free throw, it's coming off. That is real pressure. Obviously, they fired the guy. There's a shocker, huh? He lasted 1 year. They brought in another coach. We thought it was going to get better, and in a way it did. His name was Coach Len Duggar. And he gathered us all in the gymnasium locker room. He looked me right in the eye and he said, Vinesy, do you want a championship? And of course, you know what I say. I'm 15 years old. Yeah, I want a championship. What about the rest of you? Do you want a championship? Yeah, we want a championship. We had no idea what he was asking. This guy was a military man. He was crazy. Basketball stopped being fun. He had us in the weight room 5 days a week at 6 o'clock in the morning. He had us running track. We were running C Street, which is a mile straight up on the clock with 30-pound ankle weights. It was 20 pounds last night. It's growing. It's getting harder. This guy's crazy. I mean, I remember out on the track, I'm bent over and I'm spilling the beans. Sorry, I know I get a little crass from time to time. But I mean, you can't eat the lunch that you eat when you're in high school and then exercise that way. This guy was killing us. And I'm just throwing up. Sorry, that's what was happening. It is what it is. Coach comes over to me and he says, Vinesy, what's wrong, sweetheart? You want me to call your mommy? And I'm thinking, oh, you just want to hit your coach. I can just see Dane Johnson standing over me doing that, can't you? You want to call your mommy, Vinesy? You know. He said, and then strange enough though, I'll never forget what he said next. It stayed with me all my life. He said, yeah, Captain Vines, you say you want to win a championship, but you don't know what's required to make that a reality. Or maybe you do, Vinesy, you just don't want to pay the cost. Wow. Now here's the problem. There are many who came to Christ under the assumption that Jesus gives you everything and requires nothing, and you are dead wrong. As a matter of fact, you read the Bible, and by the way, if anybody ever accused Pastor Jeff of watering down the gospel, that's going to end in about 20 minutes. Because, folks, Jesus, when the crowd started getting large, do you know what he would do? He'd say something really hard and offensive so that half of them would leave on purpose. He said something like, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood. Well, half of them, I'm out of here. I'm not doing that. Without explaining it. He wanted to separate the just say the word believers from the, hey, Jesus, do some of those cool miracles and give us some fish and bread while you're at it kind of people. As a matter of fact, in Matthew chapter 8, I love it. We're in the Word. We're just in the Word today. This is good. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. Isn't that cool? That's just cool. Some guy comes over who's a Jewish rabbi. Another rabbi comes to Jesus and acknowledges his power and authority and says, I'll follow you anywhere you lead. But Jesus knows words are useless. So he says to the guy, foxes have dens and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Now, in first century context, if you're a rabbi, you eat the best food and you stay in the nicest homes because you're respected. And Jesus looked him in the eye and said, look, you follow me, here's the way it's going to be. You're going to sleep out in the open air and you're going to have the rocks as your pillows. And people are going to be trying to kill you all the time. You sure you still want to follow me? Another guy comes up and says, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. But Jesus told him, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. Man, that is just cold, isn't it? I mean, let me go and bury my dad and then I'll come serve you. And Jesus says, let the dead bury their own dead. Man, that's harsh until you recognize this little Greek phrase here is a first century colloquialism that means this. Let me first go back to my family, work in the family business, wait till my father dies, get my inheritance, and then I'll come follow you. And Jesus says, let the dead bury the dead. Let those who are dead spiritually take care of the physically dead matters. Maybe it's a vortex problem. Maybe you're just sucked into the way of the world. And that's why we're not just say the word type believers. Maybe that it's a lack of knowledge, but now you know. Now you can never plead ignorance again. You know that because of what just happened. You get to heaven, I didn't know you required everything. Pastor Jeff told you on that Sunday in August that I want everything. Where were you? Get off your cell phone. You should have listened. No texting, right? Somebody said to me once, you know, I don't go to church because all the church wants is your money. And my response is, oh, no. We want a lot more than that. That's all I want to be. Just say the word type follower. So maybe it's a vortex issue. Maybe it's a knowledge problem. By the way, I just got to do this. Thanks to Dan back there who helps me come up with some of these things. But I remember when I was living in Elizabethton, Tennessee, that I would go into a local doctor's office and he had the most humorous poster. I don't know why, and just hold on, I'll tell you when to flash it up there. I don't know why it grabbed me like this, but I thought, man, that is just so funny. And it had this little baby with his eyes all bugged out. And the doctor, all you saw was the doctor's arm about from here up with the thermometer. Now, these are the days where there's only one place to put that thermometer. You know, you couldn't do it here, you know. And the little baby, go ahead, Dan, the little caption reads, "You want to stick what? Where?" I love that. Don't you love that? I love that. Because I think for a lot of people, they come to Jesus and they think he's going to give them everything and require nothing. And then somewhere along the journey, they hear a message like this, or it dawns on them, Jesus, you want me to do what, where, and when? You want me to give up what? You want me to stop doing what? You want me to start doing that? And all of a sudden, you have a choice to make, just like you do right now, right here in this place. Sometimes it's a vortex problem. Sometimes it's a knowledge problem. Sometimes maybe it's a trust problem. Now, if that gave you a good laugh, this will probably give you a better one. I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually the host of a golf television show called Rub of the Green. Yes, it is as cheesy as you could imagine. Feel free to laugh. We filmed, hey, it's not that funny. Knock it off over there. I don't know who that was, but I will find you. I'm going to go back and watch the tape. I will find you. From 2006 to 2008, we recorded all these episodes down in Orlando, Florida. It was 98 degrees with about 100% humidity. I just did what I was told to do, and I was writing scripts, working from sun up to sundown. We did 26 episodes in 13 days, and the whole time I'm down there in that heat and working so hard, I'm thinking this, is this really worth it? I mean, is this really going to pay off great dividends, or am I wasting my time? Now, here's what I want to say. I want to say what a lot of us think but are ashamed to say. And I want to do it very candidly, because I think there are a lot of people who say, wait a minute, it all sounds well and good, Pastor Jeff, but if I take the swan dive into this type of faith and commitment, if I say to God, I will go where you want me to go, if I live life according to his word and his wisdom, and I say, God, I'll do what you ask me to do, I'll give up what you ask me to give up, I will let go of what you asked me to drop. I will give what you asked me to give. I will serve what you asked me, how you asked me to serve. But God, I got a question. And we don't say it out loud, we just think it, and it's this. Will I reach the end of my life and regret it? Well, I look back and think, man, I got ripped off. I lost more than I got. You ever ask that? Now, folks, don't beat yourself up. It's a fair question. As a matter of fact, Peter asked it. He realized he was taking hits for his faith. He had left family, friends, and his business, and he just couldn't hold it in anymore. And he says to Jesus in Mark chapter 10, we've left everything for you. And the insinuation is, Jesus, what's the return investment here? Are we going to lose more than we gain? And I love Jesus' response. I mean, we're in the Word again. This is cool. He says this in verse 29. No one who has left home or brothers, or sisters, or mother, or father, or children, or fields for me and the gospel will fail to receive 100 times as much in this present age. Homes, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, and fields, along with persecutions, and in the age to come, eternal life. Jesus is saying, guys, you couldn't make a better investment. Bet the farm, bet the whole house, because the return is immeasurable now and in the age to come. And our problem, now stay with me, our problem is we want a microwave type of faith. We want to plop it in, push a minute, and it comes out done. We want God to tell us to do something, we do it, and then immediately we see the great results. If we're going to sacrifice or give up anything, we want to know the next day after we've sacrificed it that something good has occurred. And here's the problem. It doesn't work that way. I think if Jesus were here right now, and in a real way he is, everyone in the room, he says, even when I ask you to leave something that's very dear to you, leave it because you trust me. Even when I ask you to stop sleeping with your girlfriend till you're married. You say, Pastor Jeff, you say that a lot. Okay, I'll stop saying it when you stop doing it. Even if I ask you to carefully consider something that's entertaining you and to maybe give it up. Even if I ask you to give up something that's so dear to you. Even if I ask you to give up golf, heaven forbid God would do that. But if he did, he says, I say it. I want to know that you're going to do it because you trust me, because you know my word pays huge dividends. You don't rationalize, Jeff. You don't make excuses. You just get it done because you know what you are, Jeff? You're a just say the word follower of Jesus Christ. Now, do you know why I know so much about this topic? Because I'm not a just say the word follower of Jesus. That's how I know so much. And I'm just as good as you are about rationalizing when God asks you to give up something you don't really want to give up. Oh, I'm good, real good. When I'm with God in my private place and the Spirit of God gives me a word, you know, Pastor Jeff, you're really never going to be what I want you to be until you give that up. I'm amazing. I can change the topic like that. God, what about those children in Africa that we're feeding? Isn't that a good thing? That's just a good thing, isn't it, God? And I'll try to talk about something else, and then he just waits. He just waits. He just waits. So I've got to ask you before I move on to that last point. What is it in your life? What word has God been speaking to you that you've been ignoring for quite some time? Stop doing that. Don't hook up with that guy. Do not stay with that girl. Separate yourselves from that group. Don't watch that stuff. Don't smoke that junk. Don't do that business deal. Don't retaliate against that person. Do forgive her. Do forgive him. Do forgive them. Leave that employer. Do fast and pray. Do rearrange your priorities. Do make that change. Do stay in that marriage. And then you will know if you are a just say the word follower of Jesus. Now, some of you in the room, you're thinking, you know what, Jeff, that all sounds well and good. Thanks for the pep talk. But I got to know for sure. I got to know, how can I be so sure? This is a big gamble. You're talking about my life here, Pastor Jeff. And I'm not sure I'm in the Christian crowd yet or not. I'm just seeking. Okay, I understand that. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're on your journey. That's cool. But if you want me to give you a guarantee, let me say to you what I said last week, that when I did, because I didn't have the time to explain it, you look like a deer caught in headlights. So I'm going to write it on the board for you. Here's what I said. God gives just enough evidence and clues that compel the human heart to seek Him, but leaves just enough out so that belief in God can never be purely rational. What do you mean by that? I mean that God gives you just enough clues in your life that you can have faith, not blind faith. Faith has its evidences, but not so much where faith can be purely rational. And do you know why? Because God likes the journey of faith. He likes watching you go through hurdle after hurdle and then trust Him for the next one, and He delivers, and trust Him for the next one, and He delivers, till you get to a point where you think, man, whatever I face in the future, God will come through. And I'm telling you this. Here's what God does with you. He wants to look at you and say, wait a minute. You're a disciple of my Son, Jesus. And here's the reality. If Jesus is willing to go to the cross and die for you, that pretty much proves the depth of His love and what He's willing to do to secure your salvation. So on the basis of what you do know, that He loves you, trust Him for those things you do not know. That's why Hebrews 11 says, without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who earnestly seek Him. Do you know what trusting God means? It means that when He says the word, you do it, even if you don't understand it. You do it. When does He say? Read the Bible. The more you read the Bible, the more He speaks. And then you do it because you trust Him. So if He says give and it'll be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, your cup will be running over, you give. If He says don't sleep with your boyfriend or girlfriend until you're married, you honor me, I'll honor you in the marriage, you do what He says. Why? You do what God says. You live like God says to live. You give what He says to give. You serve in the manner He says to serve. And you do it no matter how hard it is for one main reason. Because you are a just say the word type of follower and you trust Him. But you know what, guys? I don't think any three of those are the real problem. I think there are some of you caught up in the vortex, but I don't think most of you are. I think You've gotten out of that stream a long time ago, or you wouldn't be coming here. I think for some of you, it may have been a lack of knowledge, but we solved that problem, right? You know now. And I don't think it's a matter of trust for a lot of you. I think you do trust Him. Matter of fact, I don't think it's a real hard issue. I don't. I used to, but I think that a lot of you in the room, you really want, you're listening to this sermon right now, and you're not feeling beaten up. First of all, because you know me, and you know that's not the style, and it's not my intention. I think most of you in the room, and in the fireside room, I do want to be that person. But Jeff, it's so hard. 26 years of ministry. I've met so few. But you know what I have met? People who really want to be, that have the look on the faces of people I see right now. Same look, that, yeah, Jeff, I want to be. But you know what the problem is? It's not the vortex, it's not knowledge, it's not trust. It is called an act of the will. It's a will problem. Let me demonstrate. If I ask how many of you in this room wanted to know God in a way you've never known Him before, wanted God to speak to you and you could hear, wanted to know that God was guiding and leading you every moment of your life. If I said, how many of you want to feel the presence of God like you've never felt Him? I'll bet you that your hands would go up so fast the G-forces would rip your arm from the shoulder socket. Yeah! Right? So what's the problem? Well, after the hands would go up, then I would say, okay, how many of you then have employed your will to commit to 20 minutes a day to read your Bible or to pray more earnestly to God, to worship silently, to submit your life and time to God, to find that place where you and God meet? And how many of you are good at keeping that most every day? Would you agree that a significant amount of hands would probably drop? That what are you listening to in your car that builds you up spiritually speaking? What Bible study are you in? What small group are you in where your leader kind of plays a significant role in bolstering your faith? What latest Bible app have you downloaded so that you could read the Bible at work, at school, for 5-10 minutes? See, the Bible is very clear here in James chapter 4. Come near to God. In other words, make and keep commitments that put your life near the activity of God, and He will come near to you. Folks, drifting into a deeper relationship with God is preposterous. The world takes you away from God, not to Him. It takes a concerted effort with discipline and commitment. Without discipline and commitment, you cannot advance in anything. And here's the problem with most of, not you, with most of us, me, you, together. We want the fruits of commitment and discipline without actually being disciplined and committed. And it doesn't work. I don't think it's a heart problem. I don't. Most of us have to come to a point when we engage the will, when we make a decision to be fully devoted, when we start reorganizing and reordering or retooling our lives so that we can carry out the decision. When we start walking in the direction of carrying out the commitment, and then when we follow through with good old-fashioned courage to do what we know to be right, even when it's difficult. You with me? You want a second example? And this is the last one, then it's over. And you're thinking, this was hard. How many of you parents and grandparents, you're in this too, want your children or grandchildren to grow up and to be men and women of faith? I mean, to be strong in the Word, to find their place in the kingdom of Christ, to discover their spiritual gifts and use them, employ them for the expansion of Christ's kingdom on the earth. You deeply desire that they would not be led astray or sucked into the vortex of the world. You want them to be upstanding, courageous, bold, confident citizens of the kingdom of Christ. Hands in the room would go up like a forest, wouldn't they? But Abraham Lincoln said, in order for a man to train up a child in the way he should go, he must first go there himself. Are you praying with your children? Are you reading the Word with your children? Are you modeling the spiritual life for your kids? I cannot tell you what that did for me. My parents were not perfect. In fact, they were bad a lot of times. That's just us. But let me tell you what they did do that made up for a multitude of sins that we all commit as parents. I saw my dad in the evening reading his Bible and my mother sitting on the couch doing her daily devotional with Charles Stanley. And then at night before we went to bed, they brought us all together. And my dad read the Word and my mother prayed. And I want to tell you something. You do that, it is amazing what you speak to your kids. If you don't do that, it is amazing what you speak to your kids. Let me ask you about gathering in this place. Is it a priority in your life? We forget that Hebrews 10 says this, let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another. I'll meet people, and they'll say, hey, I go to CCV. I say, really, what service do you attend? And they'll say, I'm a regular attender. Okay, which service? And they can't think of the service time. And then I'll say, you're a regular attender? Yeah, I am. And I find out very quickly that their definition of regular is different than mine. Theirs is 2, 3, 4 times a year. In some cases, it'll go up to 12. Okay, 1 time a month. That's regular. That's not my definition of regular. I'll meet people who say, CCV is my church, and they come on Easter and Christmas. And they call CCV their church. Well, I'm glad that they come Easter and Christmas, better than none. Parents, that is such a disservice to your kids. It doesn't model, or it does actually model your priorities. I know you're saved by grace. That is not what this sermon is about. This is not a legalistic message. You're saved by grace on the cross. That's it. But there's some signs in your life, should be. And one of those signs is that you should have a passion for your kids to know God in an intimate, powerful way. And if you do come to church regularly, even for those who do come regularly, you should come to the same service every week. Why? Because that way your child has the same teacher. Our teachers shift and change. Your child needs to build a camaraderie, a relationship, a friendship with a certain teacher and a small group leader. So that every time your little boy or little girl comes, they say, hey, there's my small group leader. It doesn't shift and change every week, and they got to go through the whole thing all over. But that takes intentionality. It takes commitment. I'm not saying for a moment, I know everybody in the room loves their children just as much as I love mine. But here's the problem. Your kids can't drive. So they depend on your priorities and your passion and your example. One more example, then I'm done. I meet people at Coffee Klatch or IHOP or over at the university, wherever I am, they'll come up to me and they'll say, Pastor Jeff, I had no idea that CCV was involved in so much ministry. I mean, really? Kaleidoscope? We're going into the public schools to help less fortunate children and the Ripple ministry. I mean, we're repairing dilapidated homes in the house-to-home ministry. I mean, really? We got a passion for the homeless, for people out of work, for single parents. Man. And they'll say, you know what? This church has changed my life. I mean, if it wasn't for what God has been doing through Christ Church of the Valley, there'd be a gaping hole in my life. I mean, I'm so grateful. And then if I looked at them and I said, does that mean that you have a passion that there would be a fully devoted follower of Jesus Christ in every home in this valley? And then, yeah. Do you want to reach more and more hurting people? I mean, bring the gospel, the salvation to the valley? Yes, I do. But then it all starts to break down at the first point of decision making, enacting the will to sit down and reorganize your personal finances so the first check you write each pay period goes to the ministry of God. Woo. Just say the word. All right, this is going to be hard how I'm going to end. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's going to be difficult for me, very difficult, because I'm going to have to say some nice things about Dane Johnson. And then this is going to be hard. I do not think that I know another man who wants to be a just say the word type follower greater than Dane Johnson. I give him a hard time. That doesn't mean I don't respect him. And this guy beats himself up when he fails. And part of the reason is he's a coach. And he knows when he tells a football player down at San Dimas High, give me 10 laps, you better give him 10 laps. Give me 50 push-ups, you better give me 50 push-ups. When I tell you to run this play, you better run this play. He has a good understanding of how authority works. And it breaks his heart when God says, Dane, I want you to do this. And Dane will tell you when he fails, and when he's not just say the word kind of follower, man, it devastates him. It really wounds him. It brings tears to his eyes. There's a sense of frustration. But you know what I like most about Dane Johnson? He doesn't like people who weep and whine and have pity parties. Dane Johnson gets up the next morning, gets over it, and gets going. And he says, maybe today then I can be a just say the word. I didn't do it well yesterday, but maybe today I can be a just say the word kind of follower. And I'm asking all of us in the room, when does it stop? When does it stop that we are convenient-oriented Christianity? When does it stop that we look for the lowest cost possible of following Christ? When does it all stop? I'll tell you when. When you and I decide that enough is enough. And we say to ourselves, half my life is gone and I still haven't locked in the fundamental commitment that God asks me to make. And I ask everyone in the room, no matter what age, that this would be your D-Day. Today, when you decide you're going to get out of the boat and storm the hill, storm the beach, climb the mountain, and you draw a line in the sand as Joshua, for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And you walk out of this place saying, I am going to be a just say the word follower from now on. No justifying, no rationalizing. If God told me to do it, I'm going to get it done. And if you do that, together, you and I, all of us, will change the world. Father, I thank you for your power. I thank you for the manner in which you pour out your Spirit on us, the way that you recorded words from heaven for us to be able to read and to identify who we are over and against that word, to come to accurate terms of who we are and who we need to be, and to remind us that today is a new day. The past is the past. It is forgotten and forgiven as far as the east is from the west. I pray for a movement in our church, anointing from the Spirit of God, your Spirit, on this place. In the next 10 minutes and the days to come, in Jesus' name, amen.